sein Vater eigentlich da ist, dessen Diener er ist, straft diesen Vater mit so sehr viel Leiden. Das kann eventuell auch ausschlaggebend sein, dass also Nietzsche frühzeitig in der Naumburger Zeit schon am Christentum zweifelt.
Nietzsche was just 5 when he lost his father and brother. He moved with his mother and sister to the nearby town of Naumburg and was then sent to boarding school at Schulpforta 5 miles away, an establishment with a long tradition in religious education.
By the time we moved to Naumburg, my character began to show itself. I had already experienced considerable sadness and grief in my young life, and was therefore not as carefree and as wild as children usually are. My schoolmates were accustomed to teasing me on account of my seriousness. From childhood on, I sought solitude, and I felt best whenever I could give myself over to myself, undisturbed.
Well, this is his school leaving certificate, and it gives us more information than only his marks. It says that he is a diligent pupil, that he behaved well, and about his lessons in religious education, it says that he showed a lively interest in the teachings of Christianity, and he learned them very eagerly and easily.
In later life, Nietzsche would declare himself to be the Antichrist, but for now he betrayed no such sentiment. After leaving school, he went on to study theology at Bonn University, with a view to becoming a priest like his father before him. But on Easter Sunday, 1865, he refused to attend Holy Communion with his family at the local church in Naumburg. Later that year, he gave up his religious vocation altogether in order to study languages as a classical philologist. In a letter to his sister Elizabeth, he explained his reasons.
I write this to you, dear Elizabeth, only in order to counter the most usual proofs of believers. Every true faith is infallible. It performs what the believing person hopes to find in it, but it does not offer the least support for the establishing of an objective truth. Here, the ways of men divide. If you want to achieve peace of mind and happiness, have faith. If you want to be a disciple of truth, then search.
One often finds with Nietzsche that there is a crisis and a delayed reaction to it. This is very much the case with his abandonment of religion as well, so that the Antichrist, which is his most explicit statement against Christianity and against religion in general, comes over 20 years after he himself has abandoned the faith. He writes about his works as memorials to crises.
Nietzsche's most provocative attack on religion came in the parable of the madman, written late in his life, and which famously proclaimed the death of God.
Ich suche Gott. Wo ist Gott?
Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, "I seek God, I seek God"? As many of those who do not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. "Why? Did he get lost?" said one. "Did he lose his way like a child?" said another. "Or is he hiding?" The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his glances. "Where is God?" he cried. "I shall tell you. We have killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers."
The madman is clearly offering some kind of warning that there's a tremendous cataclysm on its way. I think what's important for Nietzsche is that there's a number of events, let's call them intellectual events of the 19th century, which put together all work towards undermining the very foundations of Christian moral civilization. If you take Darwin as an example, I mean, Darwin was brought up in a very theological or religious context, and Nietzsche points out that before releasing or publishing his whole theory of natural selection, he had it for 20 years and he kept it in a cupboard stacked away. I think on Darwin's part, he himself realised that it would have precisely the tremendous consequences, potentially nihilistic ones, that Nietzsche was detecting within the theory, that it would undermine the whole basis of Western morality and metaphysics, that it would show that the world functions and operates quite well, or quite consistently, without the need for any divine intervention.
In 1869, 10 years after Darwin published The Origin of Species, Nietzsche was appointed Professor of Classical Philology at Basel University. He had liberated himself from the confines of Christianity, but now he was searching for something to replace it with. Without divine sanction or retribution, human suffering was unintelligible. Nietzsche looked to philosophy for an answer and discovered the teachings of the German atheist thinker Arthur Schopenhauer. Here he found the consolation he craved to make sense of a godless universe.
Once Nietzsche recognizes that the benevolent Christian God cannot be believed in any longer, it's natural that Schopenhauer's philosophy should appeal to him. Schopenhauer's philosophy is pessimistic at its very core. It recognizes that human experience is not, for the most part, very pleasant, and that there are certain ways in which we can accommodate ourselves with this truth, with what Nietzsche refers to in his first book, The Birth of Tragedy, the truth of Silenus, that the best thing is not to have been born, but the second best thing is to die quickly.
There was, in Schopenhauer's view, one good way to get out of that misery, if only momentarily, and that was through art. Art had a very important role, and above all, music. So in the musical experience, you could transcend your earthly misery for a few moments.
For Nietzsche, nowhere was Schopenhauer's theory better illustrated than in the music of Richard Wagner. Nietzsche went to see his opera Tristan and Isolde 3 times. He identified with the suffering of the protagonists and found the ecstatic experience of the performance profoundly moving. Wagner became a surrogate father figure for Nietzsche, and he was a frequent visitor at the Wagner's house in Tribschen on